Hi everyone, it's Miss Buchanan, and today I'm going to be your lead teacher for this lesson. Today we're going to be talking about the Arctic and the Antarctic. These are very cold, chilly environments. There, that's better. Like I said, the Arctic and the Antarctic are both very cold. The Arctic is located at the top of the Earth at the North Pole, and the Antarctic is located at the South Pole, at the very bottom of the Earth. Even though they're both very cold and harsh environments, they have a whole lot of cool, very unique animals. Some of the animals in the Arctic at the North Pole are polar bears, seals, walruses, and Arctic foxes. The Antarctic in the South Pole is home to many cool animals as well, such as seals, whales, and many different kinds of penguins. Arctic or Antarctic animal? I know I do. Mine is definitely the Arctic fox. Today, we're going to be reading a book about an animal from the Antarctic, the penguin. The book we're going to be reading is called Tacky the Penguin by Helen Lester. This is a book about a unique penguin named Tacky. Now, when we're reading this book, I want you to pay special attention to the pictures and the texture of the illustrations. As well, I want you to think about Tacky and what it is that makes his personality so unique.
There once lived a penguin. His home was a nice icy land he shared with his companions. His companions were named Goodly, Lovely, Angel, Neatly, and Perfect. His name was Tacky. Tacky was an odd bird. Every day, Goodly, Lovely, Angel, Neatly, and Perfect greeted each other quietly and politely. Tacky greeted them with a hearty slap on the back and a loud, "What's happening?" Goodly, Lovely, Angel, Neatly, and Perfect always marched 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tacky always marched 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 6, 0, 2.5, 0. His companions were graceful divers. Tacky liked to do splashy cannonballs. Goodly, Lovely, Angel, Neatly, and Perfect always sang pretty songs like Sunrise on the iceberg. Tacky always sang songs like How many toes does a fish have? Tacky was an odd bird. One day the penguins heard the thump, thump, thump of feet in the distance. This could mean only one thing. Hunters had come. They came with maps and traps and rocks and locks, and they were rough and tough. As the thump, thump, thump drew closer, the penguins could hear the growling voices chanting, "We're gonna catch some pretty penguins, and we'll march 'em with a switch, and we'll sell 'em for $1 and get rich, rich, rich." Goodly, Lovely, Angel, Neatly, and Perfect ran away in fright. They hid behind a block of ice. Tacky stood alone. The hunters marched right up to him, chanting, "We're gonna catch some pretty penguins, and we'll march 'em with a switch, and we'll sell 'em for $1 and get rich, rich, rich." "What's happening?" blared Tacky, giving one hunter an especially hearty slap on the back. They growled, "We're hunting for penguins. That's what's happening." "Penguins?" said Tacky. "Do you mean those birds that march neatly in a row?" And he marched 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 6, 0, 2.5, 0. The hunters looked puzzled. Do you mean those birds that dive so gracefully? Tacky asked. And he did a splashy cannonball. The hunters looked wet. Do you mean those birds that sing such pretty songs? Tacky began to sing, and from behind the block of ice came the voices of his companions, all singing as loudly and dreadfully as they could.
How many toes does a fish have? And how many wings on a cow? I wonder, yup, I wonder.
The hunters could not stand the horrible singing. This could not be the land of the pretty penguins. They ran away with their hands clasped tightly over their ears, leaving behind their maps and traps and rocks and locks, and not looking at all rough and tough. Goodly, lovely Angel, neatly and perfect, hugged Tacky. Tacky was an odd bird, but a very nice bird to have around.
I want you guys to think about this picture here. Can you see the texture in this picture? Especially here in the sky, and even on the ice below the penguin. Now, texture is something that you can feel on an object, but sometimes a picture can make you imagine how it might feel. How does the texture in this picture make you imagine that the ice and maybe even the sky would feel? Now, I want you guys to discuss how you feel about Tacky the penguin. He's pretty different and unique and likes to march to the beat of his own drum. But in the end, what made him different is what saved the day. How does it make you guys feel? Does it make you think about all the ways you're different and how that is actually really a good thing? Tacky's a pretty silly little penguin, but I think that's what makes him super awesome. What about you? I hope you guys really enjoyed the book Tacky the Penguin. But now I bet you're really curious about what the art project today is going to be. Well, the project we're going to do today is super fun and exciting. What we're going to be doing is making a watercolor background. And then we're going to make our own penguin, just like Tacky. He's going to be unique. This is an example of what the penguin might look like. As you can see, the background has a lot of texture. You might be able to imagine how that might feel. There's going to be tons of different accessories for you guys to choose from to make your penguin truly unique, just like Tacky and just like you. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do to get our project started is to set up our workspace. Now, the first thing you want to do is lay something down on your desk to protect your workspace. What I'm using is just some paper towel, but you can use whatever Miss Redder has on hand. Okay, so for this project, there's quite a few supplies you're going to need. So let's take a moment and get those gathered to get started. First, you're going to need your pre-taped piece of paper. Now, the reason this is taped is because we're going to paint on this part. And then after that's dried, we take the tape off. But when we take the tape off, it's going to be a white background, and that's going to work as your snow for your penguin to stand on. And then we're going to need a container of water. I have it in a cup. You might have it in a plastic bottle. It doesn't matter what it is as long as you have a container of water. And then we're going to need some paintbrushes. I've got 2 small brushes and 1 large brush that I'm going to use. And then you're going to need your watercolor paints. Also, with the technique we're using today, we're going to be using salt. So we have larger grains of salt and smaller grains of salt. These both create different effects, so you can use either one or both on your painting. Alright, so we're going to start by using what's called the wet on wet technique for watercolor. So basically what you're going to do is wet the paper down with your brush first by dipping it in the water and then brushing the water onto the paper. And then you can start dipping into your watercolors. And you'll see when you start dipping them onto the water on the paper, they will start spreading out. Now, as you can see, I'm doing this in sections. Now, the reason I'm doing this in sections, I'm starting here at the top and doing my watercolors, is because if you get the whole paper wet all at once, it can get too wet and ruin your watercolor painting. So as you can see, I'm reaching for the salt and I'm putting the salt immediately on after I paint it. Now I'm doing this because
If you let the paint get too dry before putting the salt on, then that technique won't work, so you want to try to do it before your paint dries. And now, I'm just repeating what I just did. I'm going section by section, wetting the paper, and then putting the paint down, and then putting the salt down, and repeat. Now, like I said, I'm doing it this way because if the paper gets too wet, then it could ruin the painting. But if you want to try wetting the whole paper at once and putting the salt on all at once, then you can do that. It's your painting. I'll be supplying extra pieces of tape paper for you guys, just in case something happens during your painting. Just remember, art is about experimentation, not frustration. If mistakes happen, that's all right. Now, I'm a bit of a careful painter, but you don't have to be. Try to vary up your brush strokes and just have fun with it. Watercolor is the perfect paint to just try different brush strokes and try new techniques. But again, try not to get the paper too wet, because this could make the paper soak all the way through. Now, as you're painting and putting the salt on your piece, I want you to really think about the texture. I think the texture of the salt on the paper is really rough. What about you? Do you think you can compare the texture of this salt watercolor technique with the texture of the illustrations in the book? Now, just keep going section by section, wetting the paper with your brush, dipping it into the paint, putting it on the paper, putting the salt on, and repeat. Again, remember not to get your paper too wet, but if you do, it's okay. Just remember, no mistakes, just happy little accidents. Now, when you're finished, make sure to be careful handling your paper, because it might be a little soggy and it might tear very easily, so just be very careful with it. Alright, now that you're done painting your background, it's time to clean up your workspace and prepare for the next part of the project. To clean up your workspace, just put away your paints and paintbrushes, dump out the water, and dispose of whatever you were using to protect your desk. Then just set aside your painting and wait for it to dry. Now it's time for the second part of the project, making your penguin. For this part, you're going to need all of the pieces of the penguin and the accessories you picked out. You'll also need a glue stick. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your pieces and you're going to glue them onto the main penguin body. First, you have your flippers. So start with either one of the flippers, lightly put it on your glue stick, and then glue it onto the body. And then you will take the second flipper, put the very top of it onto the glue stick, and then you're just going to lightly press that onto the body. Then you can take one of your accessories. I'm gluing on the scarf right here, and lightly glue it on. Then you can do the feet. I'm putting glue on the very top of the foot, so it just sticks out of the body. And then you just do the same exact thing with the other foot. Again, just glue the very top of the foot. The glue doesn't have to be on the entire thing. Then you can glue on the beak. I just pressed it into the very top of the glue stick and then pressed it onto the face. And now I'm adding my second accessory, which is a blue hat. Are you noticing anything about the shapes? Some of them are perfectly round, but others are a little bit different, a little more organic. Now it's time for the googly eyes. If you need help with this, feel free to ask the teacher or aide. I'm using a glue stick and I'm just lightly pressing the eye into it, but also a drop of Elmer's glue will work. Do you guys remember making your puppy puppets? Well, this is a bit like that, isn't it? Just assemble your parts and glue them on. Just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just assemble and paste your penguin together, and I'm sure whatever accessories you guys chose look totally awesome. And then when you're done, make sure you pick it up off the desk and make sure no pieces are sticking. All right, your penguin's all finished now. All you have to do is make sure that you close your glue stick and clean up your desk. All right, now it's time for the final part of the project to begin. First, make sure that your watercolor background is completely dry, and then scrape the salt off gently into a trash can. All right, this next part is for your aides to help you with. This can be pretty tricky and it might be a little easy to tear the paper, so make sure you let them do it. I've left tabs on the tape, so hopefully it won't be too hard to get it off. And now that the tape is off, you have a white background that will work as the snow for your penguin to stand on. So what you're going to do is take your glue stick, uncap it, and then you will begin gluing the back of your penguin. Now make sure before you flip it over and start gluing that everything is completely dry so nothing falls off your penguin. Also make sure that your watercolor background is completely dry and all the salt is scraped off. Then you just gently press your penguin onto your background wherever you want him to be standing, and you're done. Your own personal unique penguin has found his wintry background home.
Well, did you guys have fun? I bet they look awesome, and I can't wait to see your guys' penguins. Alright, it's time to describe our artwork. Do you think you could describe your artwork to your aide, the teacher, or a student sitting next to you? Did you notice any similarities between the texture of the salt on the watercolor paint to the texture of the pictures in the book? Did you think they were similar or different? And what about your penguin? Did you notice any similarities between your penguin and the last lesson when you made your puppy puppets? Some of the shapes are very geometric, such as the googly eye, which is perfectly circle. But then the feet are a more organic shape. What about the accessories? Did you guys have any favorite accessories for your penguin? I think my favorite accessory is this little red scarf here. Alright, and now for the final step. We're going to name our penguins. I think I'm going to name mine Poppy. Poppy the penguin. What about you? Do you have a name for your totally unique penguin? Take a few moments to give your penguin a name. Alright, and that's all for today's lesson. I hope you guys had a ton of fun, and again, I cannot wait to see how your penguins turned out. Bye!